Jimmy King is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Wrestling's fake.
Wrestling's not fake!
Let's get ready to rumble!
We gotta find the king. What do you say? How far is Atlanta from here?
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Brian.
And we're here to talk about Ready to Rumble, starring David Arquette, Scott Conn, Rose McGowan, Oliver Platt, Joe Pantoliano, and a bunch of the late 90s, early 2000s era WCW wrestlers. Directed by Brian Robbins, known best probably for Varsity Blues. Released in April of 2000 on a budget of $24 million. It grossed $32.4 million in its theatrical run. So, Brian, why are we talking about Ready to Rumble?
Let's think about this, Jay. $24 million.
It's a lot of dough, man.
WCW, the company that this was produced and built by, lost $80 million in 2000 when this movie came out. How much of that was this?
I don't know. How did they lose 80? Well, we'll get into that, I guess. But God.
Oh, yes.
You thought some NBA teams were poorly run.
Yes. To answer your question, Jay, we are doing Ready to Rumble as a part of kind of a tradition here on Film Strip for the WrestleMania lead up here. WrestleMania is just a few days away from our release here, and we are geared up. Last year we did No Holds Barred, which I gotta say is one of our best podcasts ever. If you have not listened to it, you don't have to know the movie or anything to listen to this podcast. It's just fun. But this year we decided we were looking at all these different movies that were wrestling related. You got Roddy Piper with They Live, but nobody really wants to sit through that. That's just terrible. You've got all the Hulk Hogan movies out there that you could pick from. All the newer stuff, right? You got Triple H was in a movie recently. You've got the 2 or 3 John Cena movies that just came out, all the Stone Cold Steve Austin movies. But we thought we'd harken back to the days of old here and give you the one movie that was really WCW related here, and that is the Ready to Rumble movie. And it caused such a firestorm, Jay, when it came out because of what happened afterwards.
Indeed. And I guess for the uninitiated, Brian, you got to give us a basic outline of WCW during that era. Now, I want to throw in here with this. Growing up in the South, WCW was my wrestling promotion. But when it was NWA and then it had changed to WCW, I watched that stuff on TBS all the time. I mean, it was on every Saturday. I would watch it, and I got so into that stuff. And when this movie came out, I was in college, and I had a group of buddies of mine, one of which reminds me so much of Scott Conn. Is so funny. But we would get together on Monday nights and watch, Monday Nitro, and then we would do like a devotional afterward, which is kind of messed up now that I think about it. But we would all sit around, this one guy's house, Alan, and me, Greg, and Brian, and Brad, and Chris, all these guys, we would sit and watch this show religiously. So I know it because we all grew up with it. But now for a lot of people, WCW was different, and for you, it was a little different too. So what was WCW during that time?
Well, during this time, this is at the height, or actually at the end, really, of the Monday Night Wars. This is 2000 around. Let's see, this would have been about June of 2000-ish. No, actually, probably April or May of 2000-ish. And what had happened? It was a big deal in WCW at the time because what had happened was they had turned the reins over to the WWF at the time, WWE now. Their head writer, Vince Russo, had taken over the reins in 1999, at the end of 1999, and he was given about 3 months, and they had booted him out for reasons not known other than wrestling is a backstabbing business, and someone convinced someone else higher than him that this guy wasn't ready, and so they booted him out, replaced him with the old guy who was there before, during the height of the NWO era. He bombed completely, so they replaced him again with the guy they replaced the first time, Vince Russo. And so it was a mix-up era. WCW hadn't won a Monday Night War in probably close to 6 months at the time. They were way behind in the ratings to WWE, WWF, who were going through their Attitude Era at the time. And, you know, they were trying to do anything they could to get brand recognition back to them and bring everyone back to the fold. So this was kind of brought in by Eric Bischoff as something to kind of, you know, give the wrestlers some more mainstream publicity, I guess you could say, and then get a guy, David Arquette, who at the time was actually a pretty popular actor based on the Scream movies that had come out. So he had some name recognition there, and also because he was dating Courtney Cox. I don't know if they were married yet at this time.
I don't think they were married at that point.
I don't think so either, but Courtney Cox obviously was huge at the time with Friends, and so he was well into the news. They brought him in. He was a comedic actor, as we all know, and they made this movie, and they plugged everything into this. So when the movie actually did come out, it would have been May of 2000-ish when they did a wrestling event that mimicked the main event of the movie with the main event of that event. And David Arquette was brought in as an actual wrestler, ladies and gentlemen, to the WCW program, and WCW basically was dead because of it. They basically put the world championship on David Arquette for, I believe it was 2, maybe 3 weeks right before the pay-per-view. He was in the pay-per-view main event, by the way. I don't know if you remember that, Jay, but the triple cage was Jeff Jarrett versus Diamond Dallas Page versus David Arquette.
Oh, how can I forget it?
Yes. And, you know, that was really the end of WCW. After they put the title on David Arquette, nobody watched them after that. They just gave up.
Because again, why would you? How ridiculous is that?
It was very ridiculous.
Well,
so that was the era.
You know, and we look at this movie, they put it together. I said in the outset, they got the director from Varsity Blues, which for those that may not remember it, that was the MTV kind of sexed up rock and roll version of what ultimately became Friday Night Lights, which was a really good, popular movie and a great series. You know, it won't go any more than that. They got that guy to direct it, and they got the guy that wrote like the Mighty Ducks movies and Little Nicky, and, you know, a comedic writer, a guy that had been an actor but had also been a writer, had some hits. So they didn't exactly, I mean, this wasn't Hogan and McMahon on a cocaine binge like No Holds Barred. There were actual movie people involved in this. And look, I'll tell you right now, Oliver Platt, I mean, he's I never picture him as a wrestler, but he's a pretty good actor. I've seen him in a lot of stuff I like him in. He usually plays some kind of Lothario, you know, side character. But I like him. I like Scott Conn. He wasn't anything at this time. He's James Caan's son. Now he's on the new Hawaii Five-0, and he's been in all the Oceans movies and a lot of other stuff. He was in a really good movie called Boiler Room. But he hadn't really done a lot at this point, so he was young. But they brought in people that were fresh faces. They put some spit and polish on this thing, man. So why didn't it work?
You spend the $24 million and you get a pretty good, well-produced film out of it. It's just crappy writing. I mean, that's what it really boils down to. Is number one, I agree, Oliver Platt, good actor, but honestly, do you really, you look at this guy and you put him up against these actual wrestlers of WCW at the time, he looks like a joke.
Yeah. Oh no. That, I mean, and we'll have to get into that. But yeah, that was some of the big mistakes they've made in this.
Well, Jay, why don't you walk us through a little bit of a plot summary here before we get into kind of the meat of things here?
Buddies and sewage workers Gordy, David Arquette, and Sean, Scott Conn, are super fans of WCW champion wrestler Jimmy the King, played by Oliver Platt. And while attending a Monday Night Nitro to watch King defend his title, they witness him lose to Diamond Dallas Page, one of the stars of the era. And what they don't know is that WCW promoter Titus Sinclair, played by Pantaleono, has set up their favorite wrestler to go down that night. It was the whole backstory, and they blame him for it immediately, but they don't really know that that's what's happened. On the way back from the match, they survive a crash where their sewage truck turns over, and they decide it is their destiny to restore King to the top of the WCW. They go on a quest, and along the way they meet King's estranged wife, his parents, and they learn he isn't exactly as popular outside of the ring as he is in it. The two can finally convince King to go along with their plan, and the trio goes to another Nitro event where they meet a Nitro girl named Sasha, played by Rose McGowan, and they witness King get humiliated once again. But at the event, Sinclair declares a triple cage match for an upcoming event. Says if King wins, he'll get the title and $1 million, but if he loses, he can never wrestle in WCW again. King, of course, accepts the challenge, and the guys agree to help. Unfortunately, Gordy is brought back to his, quote, real life by his father, who wants him to follow in the family footsteps and become a state police officer. Ultimately, it winds up with King having to face DDP and pretty much the rest of the wrestling company in a triple cage match alone. And just when all hope seems lost, Gordy crashes his police motorcycle into the cage, Evel Knievel style. Gordy, Shawn, and some of King's friends, WCW stars Goldberg, Booker T, and a few others, deal with DDP's posse, while King and DDP duke it out on the top of the cage. King finally gets the upper hand, throws DDP through the cage to the ring floor, allowing him to retrieve the belt, win the match, and the money. Titus Sinclair, being booed by the fans and trying to get loose, is cornered by Shawn and Gordy, who take out their frustrations on him and throw him into angry fans who continue to wail on him. And in the end, King is restored and asks Gordy to be his tag team partner and Shawn to be their manager, and the group all ride off in the sunset together as credits roll. And that is the plot of Ready to Rumble. Now, first things first, we got to talk about this whole Ready to Rumble business, okay? That is the the very famous, well-known phrase of Michael Buffer, a well-known ring announcer aficionado, if you will. He trademarked that, actually, so we're probably going to have to pay him a few bucks just for saying it as many times as we have. But it is something generally associated with boxing, for the most part. How did that get into wrestling, and why would you name a wrestling movie after such a popular boxing phrase?
Well, you can thank Eric Bischoff for that, who, when was given a blank check from Ted Turner to make WCW into the number one wrestling promotion in the world over the WWF, that's one of the things he did, was bring in Michael Buffer to give it a big time feel, to introduce the main event of every Monday Nitro, as well as every pay-per-view. That's what they did, folks. They paid this guy to come, and I'll tell you what, that guy sucks.
You don't like Michael Buffer?
I can't stand Michael Buffer.
Oh, is it just because of
punch
what
him in the face every time he's on TV.
Is it just because of what he adds to the wrestling thing, or what?
No, it's because his phrase is retardedly stupid, and he is the most arrogant prick in the world.
Well, he's arrogant enough to have copyrighted his own words, or trademarked his own words. So I guess that says something for him. But I
hated him. I would literally every pay-per-view and Nitro, the mute volume was on during all introductions that he was a part of. So I did not want to hear it.
I can take or leave him on. Honestly, I just thought it was interesting that they went with such a boxing catchphrase. But, hey, it's better than the title that's in Japan, Headlock Go-Go American Wrestling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic.
You got to love our Asian friends there. But I guess
they know how to translate.
Yeah. I guess we should get into this thing. And it opens with this montage of like classic wrestlers, Brian. Guys in the heat of grappling, bloody and cut up. Back in the days when
brings back some good memories.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, when wrestling was good, and honestly, some of that stuff is like my childhood being relived in front of me. Some of it's a lot older than me, but I remember seeing those old classic matches like that with guys like Bam Bam Bigelow and Terry Blanchard and some of those guys that are pictured in that opening.
Bam Bam versus LT.
Oh man, those are some great matches. These guys would just pound on each other and make such a good thing. And then the voiceover comes from Scott Conn. Jimmy the King is the greatest wrestler of all time. And I just have a question for you. Who is he supposed to be? Who is he supposed to be a mockery of?
That's it. That's the big question. To me, they are completely and positively making fun of Jerry Lawler.
Yeah. It's
because
so thin.
Jerry Lawler, let's face it, you look at him and you think anyone in their right mind could beat the crap out of him. But because Jerry Lawler owned the Memphis wrestling promotion, half with Jerry Jarrett, he was able to push himself to be this big, awesome guy. And nothing against Jerry Lawler, who's a good worker and all that, but please, the amount of time he spent on top of the Memphis wrestling territory is a joke. And so I think they were literally poking fun at Jerry the King Lawler by having Oliver Platt, who, let's face it, looks like a fat, overweight piece of crap compared to all these wrestlers, in the ring being the biggest wrestler there is.
What's funny to me is in the backstory of it, Chris Kanyon is his stunt double. And Chris Canyon's an in-shape dude. I mean, he looks pretty good.
Chris Kanyon had a lot to do with this movie. He trained all of the people in this movie on how to wrestle. He was the head trainer for Oliver Platt in this whole thing. Not that Oliver Platt really had to do a whole lot, but he was the head trainer and also trained all of the other auxiliary people that they brought in. You know, the big scene where they're later on where they're training his posse. He trained everyone there. He was away from WCW TV for a long period of time to do this film, and so you got to give him a lot of credit for what he did.
Well, that's the backstory on him, right? He was the guy that really worked the Power Plant, which was WCW's Atlanta sort of workout gym where they would train new wrestlers and stuff. He was the guy that knew every hold, could do every move. He taught people how to do everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and he's good. And I'm going to tell you, the action in this is way superior to, like, No Holds Barred. I mean, these guys really go down.
No Holds Barred is a joke when it comes. But then you got Hogan, and if you go watch Hogan's matches, they're all jokes, right?
Exactly.
So
he's
this is actual wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that was the thing, and you know, you and I've talked about it offline, but we'll mention it here. That was the thing to me that always appealed WCW for me over WWF. WWF for me was kind of like Saturday cartoons, you know, and it really is that way. But WCW to me was always were guys that actually knew what they were doing, could at least sell the moves better, and had holds and grapples. You had guys like Ric Flair and Sting that could do that kind of stuff, along with guys like Goldberg and all those dudes too, which were a little later, but guys that could make the moves work.
WWF was always about the cartoon aspect of it and the storyline aspect of it, where WCW was about the in-ring competition, right? They tried to make it look really good and fun to watch. They made it look like it was a legitimate sport. So, yeah.
Like you mentioned, though, at this point, WCW was doing everything they could to try to get back in that race. So this is like new Coke or Crystal Pepsi or something. So they're trying to do the other guy's gig, and they're not any good at it. But Scott Kahn's giving this voiceover, and what we finally realize is he is telling this to a group of 3 kids in front of like a convenience store while David Arquette drinks, you know, the slushy thing or whatever. And of course, these kids are like, yeah, but you know, and he's going on about Jimmy the King can, you know, heal the dead or whatever. And the one kid has the line about my dog Skipper's buried in the backyard. Can he come raise Skipper from the dead?
That was a good line.
But I like that because you know the legends of these wrestlers would get to the point where somebody would say something like that, and then it's like, wait a minute, hold on, scratch the record. What'd you say? So it's all a setup for that, you know. And the next bit is I don't know what, I think they're trying to be funny here early on. Arquette goes inside to get a refill on his slushy thing or whatever, and in his head we see this dream sequence thing where he's like cutting a promo with the guy behind the counter. And what'd you think of that compared to like Zeus on, you know, Arsenio's couch or whatever?
Oh, well, Zeus on Arsenio's couch made a lot more sense, I'll tell you that much, as far as the wrestling scene, especially back in that day. This was just, you know, his dream sequence. You know, he gets into it with the guy behind the bar. It starts a wrestling match, which I believe included Macho Man Randy Savage as the guy behind the bar's tag team partner. And then here comes Jimmy the King to save the day. And instantly, King steps into the ring with a guy like Randy Savage and instantly loses all credibility.
Oh yeah, because Oliver Platt, I mean, he's in full head to toe gear. They're not showing any part of his body they don't have to. And there's a reason why. Look, Randy Savage was a dude that looked good up until his death. I mean, he looked like a physical specimen. And you put him next to Oliver Platt, who is a tub of goo. Now he's tall, but he's a tub of goo. And you can see the look on his face, like, what am I doing here? So it's such an odd role for him to play.
I gotta think that the only reason Oliver Platt got this gig was not because of his wrestling, or well, obviously not because of his wrestling skill, not because of his acting skill, but because he was tall. Because he didn't look like as big a shrimp as many of the actors, the big actors of the day would have compared to these guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the only one that actually carries some bulk to him.
But he's short.
Yeah, but he's, I mean, you know, like I was saying, he's only like 6'1" or so he's not as tall as like he comes off on the screen. You're right. I mean, who else could that? We can talk about who else they can get in a second because I want to come back to that. But he is tall, and I think you're right. I think they brought him in for that, and I think he can sell redneck really well. He was in A Time to Kill. And again, playing that kind of Lothario character, and he pulls off a great Mississippi accent in there. And I don't know where he's from. He's not from the South, but he actually gets the accent and he gets the inflection and the whole attitude. He's really good at that. And he's got a neat little arc here. But the whole point is to set up that Gordy wants to be a wrestler. He dreams of it, right? That's the whole bit. Now, how did you buy Arquette as a would-be wrestler?
Oh, it was a complete joke. But you know what? It harkens me back to the days when, you know, like you said, you had the whole deal after the Nitros. You know, I when I was a kid, I did the same exact thing. I would always pretend I was a wrestler. I even, you know, got down into my own little costumes that I made to wrestled against my larger stuffed animals or whatever I did, made up my own wrestling promotion. So I can totally see that.
I did that as a kid too, but I'm talking about I did that with my college buddies.
Oh, sure.
You know, but no, it was a social event back then, right? Mm-hmm, and absolutely. You could see how a kid like Gordy that grew up on it got to this point in life where he's in his 20s and he's kind of figuring out what he wants to be, what he wants to do, and all he really thinks about is being Jimmy the King.
Yeah, and we got to put some context back into this too. I mean, back in 2000, this is kind of the tail end of wrestling's mega boom, right? It had a huge popularity. We're talking about ratings of 6.2 for WCW and a 5.5 for WWE at the time. I mean, that's a lot of people watching wrestling, and that's what they did. You know, Nitro had a thing called Nitro Parties where they would send cameras and Mean Gene Okerlund to these houses where there'd be tons of kids, you know, college kids getting together, having beers, watching Monday Nitro and partying with the Nitro Girls and Gene Okerlund. So that is something that did happen. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this 22, 23-year-old kid really actually would be dreaming of this.
No, you're right. And one wonders, you know, how much better this film might have performed had it been released in like 96 or 97, you know, when it was really at its height, when it was really cooking.
You'd have to probably look at about 98.
Yeah.
But it's true.
That was in the middle of it. You know, that was the best of the Monday Night Wars. And I mean, you had two promotions putting out their best stuff at the same time. But we're, you know, here and there, we're in this movie. And that's all we know. What we know ahead of time is who these guys are, you know. And then we get the next day with them at work. They own, or I guess Sean owns and operates like a sewage cleanup truck.
They clean out the porta potties.
Yeah, they clean out the porta potties and the sewage, you know, the septic tanks and all that stuff. And I mean, it's they play the gross part of it or whatever. Anyway, but these guys are there and they've been cleaning up porta potties. And David Arquette's going to use the restroom. He's like, don't do it. You don't do it to a friend. Or Khan's telling him that. And Arquette's looking at him like, okay, no problem. And then we get the stupid little behind-the-back cross fingers thing.
Yeah, that
was
stupid.
He's going to hook the hose up. Now,
that's going to cause you some serious damage if you actually did that to the person inside there. That's sucking out the stuff. Dude, you're gonna blow out his ass.
I mean, yeah, man. One of the Final Destination movies, a guy gets killed in like a pool that way.
Yes.
I had a flashback to that.
You can't do that with someone in there, especially when they're on the pod. That it's like opening the air hole to the toilet while someone's sitting on it. Ain't gonna happen, folks. That's not good.
Yeah,
you ain't
going airplane or something. Yeah, it's so bad. And what I thought he was going to do was reverse the flow.
Right, you know, that's what I thought too. You'd be plowing him with reverse sewage, but
I know, but that comes later. So.
I couldn't believe that. Yeah,
yeah, it was horrible. That was horrible. But they get done with all of that, and they go through the drive-through at the taco place, whatever it is. And there's all these Creed jokes, but we find out that Sean's dream girl works at the Taco Mac or whatever that is. And I'm going, wow, your dream girl aspirations are kind of low there, bro.
Well, you gotta look at the character too. Yeah. And I don't know.
It
Are
is
these
small
guys,
town Wyoming, though.
in high school or are they out of high school right now?
They're out of high school. They got to be out of high school in like,
I suppose in order to have the job and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the ridiculous thing, right? They drive up in this sewage covered vehicle. I mean, it's covered. All the windows are caked in the sewage. The whole car's caked in. They're caked in the sewage from working in it. And the dude's trying to fix his hair. And David Arquette throws the best line. You're driving a truck full of ass juice and you're worried about your hair. Totally right.
You're right.
Seriously.
He's dead on. But it sets up the thing that Sean is the sentimental one, the real one. He likes wrestling and he likes all that stuff. But look, he's just trying to meet a girl. He meet his girl of his dreams, and impress her. And apparently they've gone out before, and all he talks about is Jimmy the King. So she's like, I'm not going out with you anymore. And he said, no, we'll talk about you. But there's the other girl at the drive-thru who's into wrestling and is kind of immature like they are, and immediately I'm going, he's going to wind up with that girl. Like,
well,
you
of
know
course,
it from the get-go.
Of course. And you got to think, this is your typical, I hate to admit it, but I knew quite a few people who are really, really, really into the wrestling thing. And I admit that I was really into it, but never to the point where it, like, took over my whole life. I knew people who 24/7, if they weren't in class, they were watching a wrestling type people, right? That's what they did. This is your typical thing. They really want to have a girlfriend, but the instant they're out with one, that's all they're going to talk about is wrestling because it's all they know and do.
Yeah, exactly. That's all they've got. Everything they do is filtered through that lens.
Yeah.
So naturally, they wind up with somebody who also filters that way.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of telegraphed and obvious, but they're sitting there and the dripping sewage while they're eating lunch.
That's just
It's
disgusting.
really gross. But, and I gotta start calling them by their character names. Sean's wearing this bracelet that he made. It's like a leather band bracelet. Now, I made those in Scouts, so I can totally buy how he knows how to do it. But it's got WWKD. You know, what would King do? Now, that is not, I want to say that is, I don't think that's the origin of the what would Jesus do, stuff that came out around the same time, actually. I think it's just a riff on it. And
Must
the idea
be,
of it. But it's a poorly done one. It comes off just so stupid. It's like, but of course, Gordy's excited because he made two, and I'm like, you guys are in love with each other, just not able to.
No crap. Totally what I was thinking.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just saying that they come off like more of a couple than anybody else in this story. So I don't know why they didn't go there, but I guess in 2000 you couldn't do that still. I don't know, but maybe has 11 years changed that much? I don't know. Maybe it has. But the whole bit is they're going to Cheyenne. They're in Wyoming. They're in small town Wyoming. They're going to Cheyenne, Wyoming to see the Monday Night Nitro. They're going to a Nitro taping. All right, and they have the worst seats ever. All right, they can't even see from where they are, so they just sneak down and upgrade their seats. Now,
no big deal.
Now look, I've been to a lot of things and a lot of concerts and stuff. Unless it's just really bad, there ain't no moving around. Have you ever been to like a wrestling event where you felt like you could move from the upper deck to the lower that quick?
Honestly, yes, I have.
Okay.
And I have moved from the upper deck to the lower deck before, but not at a television taping or a pay-per-view event. It's always for a house show.
Would be like what they call a dark match or a house show, right? Like you could do that during there. You couldn't do that at a taping, even if Nitro had fallen off the map at that point.
No, yeah. Here's what would happen is if they were really hard up sales, they would freely move everybody from the upper deck to the lower deck so that it didn't look bad on TV.
Exactly. Yeah, you block out the upper deck with curtains and you make it look like a smaller, more packed in area, right? But whatever. They're down there because they're there to watch their guy, right? So we get our first glimpse behind the scenes now, Brian, of the wrestling promoter. Now, the last time we visited wrestling promoters, they were in a boardroom of a television company. You know, be here tomorrow. Here's a check that can't flush. Dookie. All that stuff was going down.
Yes.
You know, now we got Joey Pantoliano in the worst hair pieces and outfits I've ever seen in my life.
I liked it. I liked his look. Yeah.
Oh, dude, he looks ridiculous though.
Exactly, but
looks like a rock and roll, like, you know, he looks like the keyboard player from the Allman Brothers band.
Yes.
You know, touring section, not even the real band, but just the guys that come. You know, he didn't look like. You know, all the wrestling promoters I ever heard of were either guys that had been in the business, so they still look like wrestlers, or they were businessmen like Eric Bischoff.
Okay,
They looked like they were a Harley.
First and foremost, a wrestling promoter likes to give himself a good look, right? You got Vince McMahon, who's always worn the tuxedo. That's his gimmick. That's his thing. Eric Bischoff used to announce the wrestling and do all that stuff in a pair of blue jeans, like usually light blue jeans, and a nice dress, a t-shirt with a dress coat on. That was his shtick until the NWO came along, and then he became a biker look, right? He wore the blue jeans, had the biker leather coat on, and all that stuff. So they kind of like have the ego of making their own style. This is Sinclair's style. So I totally bought it. I could totally see that happening.
Okay, but he comes in, and the whole complaint is what?
King is not
there.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, King's not there. He's not on time. They have a big match tonight, DDP versus the King for the title. And basically they flat out tell you that King is a drunk, right? King is going to show up. He's not going to be in any condition to wrestle. DDP, I want you. This is your night. Make it look good and damage him. Right.
Exactly. Like he says in front of Goldberg and the other wrestlers, well, he's going to do his move and you're going to be done. Then he pulls him aside and he says, no, this is it. I'm going to take care of you. You know, when I give you the signal, you just go off on the old boy and we'll take care of it.
Yes.
You know, and so he said, okay, so it's all about, he's going to screw the King, and I want to tell you, I bought that totally because I was like, yep, I've seen that happen in wrestling promotions.
Yeah.
Montreal screw job, anybody? Wrestling is this, cutthroat business. You said it at the beginning there, Brian. And if you get screwed out of the gig, you kind of get left behind. It's sort of like getting kicked out of the band.
Yeah. And it leaves deep divisions between things. So, as you can tell by, say, Bret Hart and Vince McMahon, it took them how many years to finally kiss and make up after that. But even still, this is something that was really cool. But we also have one other big thing here, Jay, that happens during this whole sequence. We get to finally meet Sasha, the Nitro girl that everyone goes gaga over. Now here's how ridiculous this is. They bring in all the real Nitro girls are there, except for maybe Kimberly Page. I don't think I saw her at all in there, but all the other Nitro girls who are actually on the TV show, did their little dancing thing, are all there. And then Sasha, who is singled out by having a completely different outfit. They're all wearing white and she's wearing this red getup. What the hell is that? Never, Jay, in the time of the Nitro Girls, was anyone dressed different than the other.
But it's plot point, so you notice her over these, girls you've seen on TV. Let's stick Rose McGowan out there, who is not bad to look at. Rose McGowan's very pretty, and they dress her, pretty skanky in this movie.
Hell yeah!
So she's there to be oogled and looked at. And they stick her right out front. But I noticed that, too. I was like, that didn't look like a Nitro Girls routine. That looked more like the Pussycat Dolls or
there
something.
You go. Exactly.
And the Nitro Girls could do some stuff. But they
back
were more
then,
like
the Spice Girls.
Yeah. But that was, they were more like glorified cheer units than they were strippers.
Well, they were a dance squad, right? Like your dance team in school would be. They never wanted to be considered something like a cheerleader or anything like that. They were doing dance routines, and they wanted to be considered real dancers. And sure, they dressed in these sexy outfits.
Oh, yeah. They dressed in these sexy outfits, but they didn't... I don't know that they hoed it up the way Rose McGowan did. Maybe that's just her,
they did.
Though.
Sometimes they did.
But the whole bit is that they're looking at her, and already in my mind, I'm starting to go, well, somehow or another they're going to meet her, and that's not going to go like they expect either. And certainly that's how it turns out with her, too. I want to tell you, talk about phoning it in. Rose McGowan
big
mailed
time.
this sucker in from 2 weeks ago. She looked so bored.
Well, how could you not be? I mean, the whole plot with her is just, it's ridiculously stupid and really thrown in for no real good reason. I don't think.
Well, there's a reason. It's just
There is a
not
reason.
like
It's
you
just
said.
there was no need for it. I don't think they
Yeah.
needed it.
Yeah, need. I don't know.
Well-
What does this story need? I mean, it needs a leprechaun
it needs
to
a
pop
writer
out.
and some better actors. And
Well, yeah, that's the thing, though. They had. Here's the deal. They had a real writer. They had real people doing this. I want to keep reiterating that. But there's a credit in the beginning that kind of said it all to me, based on characters created by the WCW. So already I know there's the 25 people that have screwed that promotion up that probably have their hands in this thing.
and
are
Eric
twisting this
Bischoff is
around.
an executive producer on the thing. So
Yeah. So you already know the people that have run that wrestling promotion in the ground are now running this could be interesting comedy movie in the ground.
yes,
Because there's all this stuff being thrown at you in the first act. And, I mean, the characters are so shallow it doesn't really matter, but it is kind of ridiculous, you know. But anyway, finally we get to the match. You know, it's going down. Hey, Tony Schiavone, your favorite, man.
yes, I love Tony Schiavone. I wish he was still announcing wrestling.
I think he's doing baseball now or something like that. But
I don't know what he's doing.
He was working for the Braves Network at one time. Who's the other guy with him though? I
Mike
know him.
Tenay.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I couldn't
TNA
remember who it
announcer.
was.
If-
There we go. That's why I don't know him because I don't watch that
Wow.
much. I know.
You're
Well,
missing
I
out.
know the. Yeah, I know the voice, but I just didn't recognize him. But you know what though? I'm having flashbacks to No Holds Barred. What we said. Who were the best?
Oh, yeah.
Gorilla and Jesse, with nobody that good. And these guys are trying, but
No, but
again,
they gave him such really crappy lines to run in this. It was, and
Yeah.
honestly, you're trying to put over Oliver Platt in the ring. Come on.
this is true. This is
It was
very
so
true.
so cheesy. And here's the killer part about this, man. The match itself, the way they filmed this thing, all they had to do was say, okay, go out there and do your thing as a wrestler and we'll film it like a wrestling match. No, they made it Hollywood and it looked so bad.
Oh, it does. It looks so ridiculous, and the way they cut it together, you can tell the insert shots of like here's Oliver Platt's face, sweaty,
Yeah.
and then here's like somebody really doing a move with DDP,
Right.
Who looks great. And look, you know, Diamond Dallas Page was no spring chicken. He was an old guy.
Well, he was in
You
his
know-
mid to late 40s at the time.
Yeah, but he looked phenomenal because he was tall. Look, he's like 6'5". Oliver Platt's 6'3". You know, they at least look like they belong standing next to each other, even though in the ring they're not. You know, they're not even close.
Yeah.
But the spots are so terrible in this. I mean, it is so. You can tell you're not watching the same person giving the same performance in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing I'll say, you know, when you watch No Holds Barred, that's what Hogan did, you know, 270 nights a year. So that was him.
And you got to
knew
give
were seeing it.
Tony Lister a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Because he actually learned to wrestle and became a wrestler for a little while in the promotion. So those were those guys wrestling. This was DDP and Canyon wrestling. And you know, Canyon and DDP were best friends up until the day Canyon died. So they worked very well together. So they looked good, but it didn't look like Oliver Platt.
Well, again, like you said, those guys had probably worked together for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, for how many nights doing this? So they had that down. You know, so the action was fun, but it was does
filmed
take
in
it-
a way that was just so blech.
Well, it did just kind of end, and then what happens is, you know, DDP sort of outside the ring, and he looks over at Titus, and Titus gives him the, you know, wink or whatever the heck that was.
Yeah.
And Dallas Page just goes off on Oliver Platt, and he just starts punching him in the face, like hitting him for real, in other words. And what's funny about this, and what I did like about it, is these two guys are talking to each other through the match. Now, a lot of people don't know that stuff, Brian.
Yeah.
And having worked as a ring announcer before, I learned this years ago. These guys will talk to each other during the match. You just don't ever see it or hear it, but they're going, okay, give me one of these. Okay, do this.
Yep.
And to the look on Platt's face, he sells it when he gets punched the first time for real. Like, hey, man, what's the deal.
Yeah, no, it's great because it gives you a good inside look. Now, they used to talk in what's called Carney language, and it's basically saying like, "Giziv me a hezedlock." You know, they put the Z's in the middle of their words, and that's how they would communicate to each other. But they do it in a way that made it look like they were yelling at each other or whatever else, so that the fans didn't catch on, or they do it mumbled under their breath. But that's how they do it. The heel would call the match. So DDP should be the one calling this match. And in the movie, he really is the one calling out the match. Every once in a while, Platt will get in a say to do something, but DDP's calling the match, and that's how it went. It was a cool little insight that really they didn't talk about back then, even at this time. So they really gave you a good glimpse of how it worked in this movie, which is kind of an interesting key.
And see, and that to me brings up my first major problem that I'm actually going to ding this movie for, is now it has decided it's going to let me in behind the scenes. This and the whole bit about the promoter, even the promoter screwing the guy, that still seems like a story. This whole, fanciful guys and the story. Now I'm getting a look at how these guys actually do this stuff. And I'll tell you, it wasn't like that just shattered my life, because at that point I figured out, look, this is choreographed stunt work with good drama. I know what this stuff is, okay? Fake is a word a lot of people like to throw around, but these guys work, and this is what they do, I'm cool with knowing how they do that now. They didn't ruin it for me, but it put it in a different light. I'm like, okay, wait a minute then. So is the rest of this movie going to be that or what? Because I think that creates an imbalance in it.
You got to remember, too, that a lot of this had already come out, and people started to know about this really because of Mick Foley's book in 1999, Have a Nice Day. Blew the lid off of the industry. People knew this was all made up and how it worked and things like that because of many different reasons. The steroid trial with Vince McMahon kind of brought a lot of it out to light, where he actually had to admit that it was fake. The whole tax thing, trying to get out of paying the sports tax, and I believe it was in Connecticut or New Jersey or somewhere on the East Coast. Yeah. He basically said, "We're not sport, we're sports entertainment." Blew that lid off things. You got Bret Hart situation where Vince basically screwed him out of the championship. That really blew the lid off of things too. So people knew what was going on. This was just a little bit further glimpse into things that, if you did read Mick Foley's book, you already knew this was going on. But if you didn't, now you did know this is how it was going on. Today, and you know everything about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, and I wonder how that got worked in the story. I don't know that the guy that wrote the Mighty Ducks would know that unless he did a lot of interviews and they told him. I have a feeling that's something that the WCW guys
that was totally brought in there by the WCW guys, Eric Bischoff, all that. They were helping in this whole thing the whole way around. So yeah, but I like that they did this. You have to do this because it shows that King's in there with DDP. And they're trusting each other to come up with this match. And then DDP blows the curtain off it and changes everything, and he's taken by surprise. If it just happened that they were fighting each other and they didn't show the communication between the two, and then Oliver Platt starts getting mad about it, it doesn't make sense. So it makes sense for him to show DDP saying, "All right, give me a clothesline. All right, come off the ropes and kick me." That makes sense, because then all of a sudden, boom, DDP turns on him and says, "Sorry, brother, not your night," and starts beating the crap out of him.
Yeah, and then the whole backstage comes out there with him. Now, I don't know about you, that to me felt a little bit over the top. I think that felt like the WCW said, we need to run our cavalcade of guys through this thing 3 or 4 times. This is a good time. I have no doubt in my mind that Dallas Page could beat the crap out of Oliver Platt by himself with no help.
Well, absolutely. Now, but you have to take Oliver Platt's very unwrestling look out of the equation and figure that this is Goldberg, right? If I were Goldberg watching this movie, I would have been like, maybe I should take a cue from this and stop being such an ego freaking maniac, because this could be me any day. Because King was basically Goldberg. King was basically Goldberg, right? Goldberg was basically thrown in there, and they made him who he was, and then he became a big shot in his own head. But anyway, that's another whole nother story. So I can totally see this happening too, though, Jay. What they did is they brought out the group. So if you had Goldberg and DDP doing this, and DDP tried to screw out Goldberg's going to put up a fight, and you're going to need more people to help. So understood that.
He played defensive end in the NFL. That's different. Dallas Page was a bouncer. That's different.
I get that.
I'm just saying though. I thought in storyline, yes, it does work that everybody would turn on him at once, but it did feel like now it's time to showcase what we have that you can see every Monday night on Nitro. Tune in 7:05 or whatever, 7:57.
I do have to say the 4-post massacre is pretty kicking.
And that was kind of cool. I did think that was cool to get these 4 guys up who all do these drops on Oliver Platt in the middle of the ring. Now, who climbs up on those posts again? Let's get the list.
You got Bam Bam Bigelow. Yep. Prince Iaukea, who many people probably would never know. Perry Saturn, who was big in the ECW days and had a decent run in WCW and also in WWE before he had some neck problems. And then Juventud Guerrera, who is
one of the best lucha libres ever to hit the ring. So
he is, but he's got massive drug problems, and that's caused him to kind of fall off.
But at the time, that was his deal.
Yep.
I want to tell you the part of that that's unbelievable is Bam Bam Bigelow off the top rope. I saw him do a lot of stuff. I never saw Homeboy do a lot of rope
absolutely.
work.
Bam Bam Bigelow was known for being the big guy who could do that stuff. So if you go back and watch some Bam Bam Bigelow stuff, you will see him come off the top rope and do all sorts of fancy moves. He could drop kick like no other big man could ever do. And he was good on that. Yep, he was good on that. So that made sense to me.
I'm with you though. The 4-post massacre was cool. You know the way they went down, and Gordy said, "This isn't even a pay-per-view." And
I know that was great.
Now that is another behind-the-scenes slide though, because Jim Ross, who worked for WCW for a short time and became sort of the voice of WWF for many years, when McMahon kind of went behind the scenes, will tell you the thing that really sunk that promotion was that they gave away their best matches for free on TV. And that's another inside thing. Every good wrestling fan, every smart mark, you know, that buys the deal and will go for the ride but knows how it really works, knows a match like that will end in double disqualification and everybody's pointing guns at each other.
Absolutely.
Something like that, right?
Absolutely.
Or somebody's pregnant mistress comes in, or there's always something to end to arrest the climax, right? You rarely give it away, but they're going to give it away, and these guys are blown away by that. And I thought that was kind of a cool call out because that's the story of Goldberg. He won his title on free TV.
It was one of the reasons they think the WCW went downhill after that is because they gave away the match that could have sold them. They could have sold so many pay-per-views by having Hogan Goldberg, and all they really had to do was have Goldberg win by DQ against Hogan that night on Raw, and then set up the pay-per-view. And they didn't, and they gave it away for free, which was a total ratings boom because I believe the week before that they lost for the first time to WWF in the rating in 80 some weeks, and so they blew their load on the next week to try to get that rating back. So but again, you got to think of it this way too. For us who are smart marks, yes, that would be what we'd say. This isn't even a pay-per-view, but you got to look at Gordy and Sean. They're not smart marks. They're complete marks. They think everything's real.
Gordy is for sure, and I think that's why he gets that line. That would have been weird if Sean said it, but I'm with you there. Gordy would be the one that would be like, "Why is this happening? Why is Scooby not eating the Scooby snacks or whatever?" I mean, he's sort of in that mode. And now I'm gonna tell you though, the best performance Pantaleono gives in the whole movie is at the end of this when he does his whole. You saw him go down, blah blah blah. But when he gets down on the ground, he grabs Oliver Platt's hand, and Platt looks at him and says, "Hey, why?" And he says, "Why not?" He said, "I made you, baby, and I put you away." And I thought, that is the modern day Braille, though. That's how these guys were.
Absolutely. And it's so true. And it happens all the time. When a wrestler gets too big for his britches, a promoter will just say, "All right, you don't want to play nice, then you can take a hike." And they lose it. And that's how more wrestlers lose their careers than anything else is they get too big of an ego, too big of a head, think that they can do whatever they want, and then a wrestler promoter either gives into them and lets them do it, a la Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan, or they don't. And then you're nobody anymore. And you gotta be careful.
I mean, it's the guy that runs the show behind the scenes that really has the power. I think that's what they're trying to say there, And of course, that's it. Their hero is destroyed.
Yes.
And now I want to tell you the funniest scene in the movie. These two guys driving away. Dang stupid allergies. Like they're crying over this. But they're trying to act like it's not cheating allergies. Stupid unfair allergies. And it's one of the funniest. I mean, those two guys in that truck are hilarious with each other. And that is when I really started just laughing and enjoying this for the ride. Because I'll tell you, Scott Conn is always good when you pair him with somebody. And he's great in those Ocean's films because they put him up next to Casey Affleck and they can just be funny together. He and Arquette have a real chemistry here, and they're really funny together.
At times, not always. Arquette is a little over the top in this movie. I think that it gets annoying really fast, and that's why I have a note here that wonders how the hell he ever landed Courtney Cox. But
well, Scream movies. I mean that.
Well, absolutely is why. But it's just like, what did she see in him? Because he's so over the top and annoying a lot of times in this movie that it takes a Conn to bring him down to a better level where you can handle him.
And I'll say this: Scott Conn is by far a better actor than David Arquette, and that's no slam at Arquette. Arquette is what he is. Scott Conn can act; he can do a lot of things. He usually is playing somebody, the kind of archetypes his dad made famous. These sort of, ill-tempered, short-fused, tough guys. That's kind of what he's known for. But here, I buy him as he would be a friend to a guy like Gordy who is so sold into it, and he's maybe like 75% sold into it. So it's enough that they can hang out and talk. But he's got a business, and it's all his dad left him. It's he's sort of a little more of a grown-up than Gordy is.
Yeah,
if either one of them are at all, but I thought it was funny that whole scene.
It was funny, and even the whole where they crashed the tanker and the poop's going all over, and as they're cleaning it up, a guy driving a semi runs into him, and what is he carrying? Toilet paper. Just classic.
What are the odds? The odds? And that's what Gordy uses as it must be a sign.
Exactly.
And
let's clean up the poop with toilet paper.
As comedic devices go, that's about as 101 as you get. But
it worked.
Arquette sells it for me. I liked it. Yeah, I thought it was funny. And they decide they've got to go on the road, and they got to restore the king.
Arquette decides this, or Gordy decides this, and has to convince Sean that this is the right thing to do. So. Yeah.
But Sean goes along with it. I mean,
of course. What else has he got to do? His truck's destroyed. He has no job.
And I love how they do a good laugh here because, what would usually happen? We're going to Atlanta. And then they'd just be in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
No. It's the next morning. They're still hitchhiking going, it's really cold, sir. Please stop.
Right.
They're waiting for a ride. Now, my question is, how did they get all the poop cleaned off of the suit?
Well, exactly. They looked clean. They obviously didn't have it all cleaned off, but they looked much better than when they had it all over their bodies, which is pretty gross. Maybe the fireman hosed them down.
Maybe so. Maybe there's a cutscene somewhere. I don't know. I didn't bother to delve into my DVD that deep. But, but okay, the next morning they're picked up in a van by a bunch of nuns. All right?
These nuns are awesome.
These nuns are so awesome. Because, of course, they're doing the nun thing. They're playing the nun songs, Kumbaya, Michael, Row Your Boat Ashore. And Arquette whips out the whole bit. Well, no, first off, what are the odds of nuns from Wyoming going to Daytona, Florida?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was a big conference of all the Catholic people in Florida. I don't get that either. That was interesting. But then you got Sean, who whips out the guitar and starts playing Van Halen, Running with the Devil, and the lead nun there knows all the words.
Yeah, like they act like they don't know it, but then they do, and they all whip out lighters, and it's really odd. But it's funny. It's funny. It's one of those funny little touches that make, if you got to get them from A to B, you make the getting there funny.
Yep, and even better when they get out of the truck and Sean asks Gordy, "How many times did you fart in there?" And he says, "I didn't fart." Well, I didn't fart either. And they're like, "The farting nuns." I thought that was kind of funny.
Really? That is kind of funny. It's a little lowbrow, but it is funny. And it's cute the way they play it. They're like, "Dude, that was so not me. How cute is that?" I love how he says, he's like, "Look, man, I know we got all this religion now, but I just got to ask you."
Yes.
And they go with it. So they go inside the truck stop or wherever they are there.
Yes.
And who else is playing the video
Shermanator.
games but the Shermanator, the guy who plays that character in American Pie, the ginger of that generation. He was in a Can't Hardly Wait. This guy's been in all kind of stuff doing the same role, right? But he's just, he's as sold out of a fan as Gordy is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm watching them play the game, the old wrestling video games. Remember the stand-up console wrestling video games?
Oh, yes.
Those are horrible.
Oh, I still have a couple that I'd played WrestleMania on the Nintendo, and the Undertaker would spew fire from his fingers or lightning. It was just bad.
Like Mortal Kombat,
yes.
The wrestling game.
Yes. Ugh.
Oh, and we haven't even talked about Jimmy the King's catchphrase or whatever, but it's all over this video game. I will rule you.
Yeah.
Which is horrible.
It's
so
bad.
obvious it's bad.
It is bad. It is bad.
Oh, that was bad.
So they basically they're trying to figure out what to do, and turns out the Shermanator, which I don't even know what the guy's name is in this movie, which doesn't really matter, but he just so happens to know how to use a computer, ladies and gentlemen, a computer. So they go to his house, and he's looking up all this information on the web on how to find Jimmy the King, giving them to these guys so they can go search for him, finds his home address and all this other stuff. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little ploy to him.
Yeah, the idea of using the internet to find somebody.
Nowadays, easy.
Yeah, but old internet, crusty old bad internet. And I remember those pages, but they're looking up and they realize, okay, he's, we got his wife's name, his kids, his parents, all this stuff. So they are going out to find the king, and they come across his wife living in, redneck trailer park. Because, of course, Atlanta, Georgia is such a redneck place. Anybody that's been to Atlanta in the last 5 years knows how not southern that city is. And I'm not saying that as a slight. That is a metropolitan, multicultural place.
And here's the kicker,
It does not look like that.
WCW was based in where? Atlanta. They should have known this. Okay, so we have to assume that they've gone out of Georgia at this point. Or out of Atlanta,
I don't know. Yeah, at least. But, again, we don't know, because how are they getting around anywhere? Are they walking? Are they hitching the whole way?
That's a
we don't know.
great question. I never even thought of that, because they don't have a vehicle. They hitchhike to where they are, so I never even thought to think about that. How are they getting to these places?
It was a big hole for me. I was like, they stole a moped or something. Nobody, they didn't even bother to tell that. So we don't know, but they just sort of walk on set and walk off set. Yeah. That's kind of how it looks. Yeah. But what'd you make of Eugenia, the King's Queen?
Oh my God! Well, that's played by Caroline Rhea, yep, which I thought was perfect. She's hilarious. I don't know if you care for her too much, but she's pretty. Yeah, she's pretty funny, and she played it perfectly. The redneck wife who's ticked off at the king and wants to basically rip his balls out and stuff him down his throat, right? I liked it. I thought it was great. But the kid, Frank, that poor guy. They gave him this weird set of braces with teeth all over the place. Oh. It's
like Bubba teeth you can get for 50 cents at the gas station.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like. It's so ridiculous.
It's terrible.
But again, it plays the whole idea. The whole idea is that this king guy's pretty much a piece of crap.
Oh yeah,
he's just. Which, you know what? No, isn't that the kind of the life of a wrestling fan is unfortunately you find out a lot of times these guys are not very nice, good
absolutely.
people. You mentioned a lot of the problems of some of the guys we've already seen in this film.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are not good dudes.
And then
they've got issues.
I love the line though that they leave the ex-wife's place and they go find the mom and dad, and he's sitting there and goes, "Hey, you're the mom who did this, and you're the dead dad. It says in his biography that you're dead." And he's like, "Well, that's just terrible," and the dad gets all pissed off about it. and
you know who that is, right? That dad?
No, I don't remember.
That is David Arquette's dad, Louis.
Really?
Arquette.
I did not know that.
Yeah, a little cameo there from
funny.
Dad, so
funny.
Yeah, which is funny because you hear him every now and then. You hear him talking like, "Oh yeah, there it is." It's just kind of in there, but Yeah, here's what I want to know. How did Sherm find a speeding ticket online in 1999?
Hey, the same way that Willow and the Buffy the Vampire Slayer was able to hack into the school's files without even being connected to the internet.
Good point. Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's a good callback there to the Art of Slaying podcast. Very good. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a convenience, and I guess they teleport to wherever they're going next. But they finally find the king in a trailer park because he's borrowed an RV from his parents and hadn't returned it. And they find him in, like, I guess he's incognito, so he's dressed up as a woman. What's up with that?
Is that what he was? I don't know what he was dressed up as. I mean, he looked like Michael Myers in the Guru, the Love Guru movie or whatever. It was just terrible. No, but it's the king, and I think he was supposed to be dressed up as a woman, even though he's got this big beard and mustache. So anyone who buys that,
Oliver Platt with a beard and mustache is not easy to hide. I don't even know that he could look like a woman if he tried. He's such a big burly guy, but he, they finally convince him that they're his biggest fans, blah blah blah, and then he pulls the douche card out on him.
Yep, you need to pay me for 5 minutes to talk. Was it $10 a piece or something like that? $5 to talk.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
5 minutes to talk. So they go in there and they're all eager to pay him, right? And they get to talking to him, and they're like sitting there, and they want him to say his catchphrases, but of course he no-sells them the whole time. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you people? And then he asks them to go get him some beer.
Yeah. And they bring the beer back.
Movie sponsored by Grain Belt Premium, Minnesota, baby. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't notice that. I thought that was like generic Miller High Life or something over there.
Grain Belt Premium.
How about that? I wonder how they got that sponsorship. But, or if they paid for the clearance at all. I guess you could call your friends and find out. But here's the funniest thing about that. They want to, he's telling the story, he's owned by the promoter or whatever. How many times have you seen that? And they're going, we're going to restore you. And he says, ain't going to happen, guys. That guy owns the trademark on all of it, And I started to think, and I was like, when The Rock became Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and now he's just Dwayne. I saw Fast Five, and I was like, Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
These characters are owned by the wrestling promoter,
and they are
not by the guys.
And that was really started back in the probably late 90s when WCW started paying contracts out, and they started merchandising these things, and people would swap between the two companies. And when Kevin Nash and Scott Hall jumped ship in 96 to WCW, they sued WCW, and WWF sued WCW so that they couldn't use the trademark names or mannerisms of Razor Ramon and Diesel.
Yeah, so they just had to be themselves.
Yep, they had to go by their own name, and they couldn't do the things that they did, like
Hey Yo.
Right. Well, not the Hey Yo. It was more of the pump and fist thing that he always did as Razor Ramon and things like that. So yes.
Yeah. So but those kind of things happen, and it makes you realize how much of a product these guys are. But the story takes a real ugly turn for about 2 minutes, which I thought was kind of brave for a movie that's really playing everything for laughs. He gets really ticked off at them and just starts throwing them out of the trailer and, get yourself out of my way. You make me sick, you idiots, and stuff. And I thought, that's kind of a rough way to go, for this movie. I mean, it gets kind of dark there for about 3 seconds before they get him drunk, and then they, he crowns them and that, that whole bit.
Was terrible too.
Yeah, which is terrible. But then we'll get to that in a minute. But that to me was an interesting twist. How did you read that?
I looked at it as a bitter old wrestler. I think that there are plenty of cases that support that this would be how they would act. They want to be left alone, right? They don't want to be bugged, and they get really pissy, and, most of them are hyped up on something, whereas this guy's on beer. There's a lot who are on drugs, and that, not a surprise that they would have a wrestler act that way, because I think that's how Jimmy Snuka killed his girlfriend in a fight like that, so.
Oh, I mean, and how the other horrible stories that have come out in the last several years.
Them,
I mean, let's not even relive. I mean, it is rough to think about that. But again, guys with problems who don't know how to handle them, and they turn to the wrong substances, and it's not surprising that they're bitter or whatever. Right. But they do a real good job to quickly get us back to the laughs, because they're in there and they're trying to convince him, we're going to let you get a swing at the guy that screwed you over or whatever. And of course, he knocks them both out, and he wakes them up in the morning by pouring like half an empty beer on their face, which is nasty.
Yeah.
But he says, we're going to, I'm in to go and whip, Sinclair. And, here's my thing. This maybe a week has passed. And they went from Cheyenne, Wyoming to New York in a week?
A week.
Now,
a week. No, not only that.
Yeah.
Not only that. They went from Atlanta to Cheyenne to New York.
Yeah. No, I'm not even talking about Gordy and Sean's travel. I'm talking about the wrestling company.
Oh, no, they'll do that, sure.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, I just thought, geez, that's a real change of venue. But I'm with you. How did these three guys have logged more miles than I'm doing a year?
Yes.
In
and with what? Teleportation? Yeah.
Well, no. This time they're in the RV.
The RV, yes. But they've been going all
even
over
in 2000. That gas money, they had $30 between the two of them, and they got to New York on that. But whatever. Maybe it runs on sewage.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
But they get up there, and Titus, of course, is the one who made the star, just like O'Brell. Now, I want to tell you, I love the whole bit where they're working out the TV bit, with the whole, you go start on the belt and come on up, and, this is how we're going to do it or whatever. And everybody's acting like a normal human being, and then they turn the cameras on. And I really have to think that they said in the script, DDP, do your thing, because I have seen him do that bit with other wrestlers and other moments 1,000 times.
Absolutely.
And man, he nailed it, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
It was very well done promo for everything, and that's one thing that WCW was always good at, was getting the promos going. WWF used to be, way back in the day when they did the behind the with the WWE logo wallpaper behind you doing all the stuff.
Yeah,
then they
the
switched
Ultimate Warrior would talk about bringing down the heavens.
Those were good times. Those were good times. But WCW gave you more of the reality feel to their backstage promos and things like that. And so I think they did a really good job with that too. And but before they even did that, they announced the match for the night. Jay, Sid Vicious versus Sting in a hardcore match was the main event. That is hilarious.
Oh, that is so hilarious.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I know. They keep. Again, that's another moment we got to shove guys that we have on every Monday night on the screen for a couple minutes here. We got to remind people we have a real show. This isn't just a movie. We have a real show that we're trying to sell. We're trying to resurrect here, essentially. But I love how they're pretty much talking trash about the King. And the best part of it was beforehand. I'll tell you, Joe Pantoliano's whole little bit about the guy will rule you as soon as I finish some beer.
Right.
That was a funnier bit than even what Dallas Page was doing. But they're doing the regular promo and then hiding in one of the crappers, the porta potties. There's something about porta potties in this movie.
Well, you got to remember that's how Sean and Gordy got him into the arena. They hit him in the porta potty, and because they're a porta potty company, they were able to get in and do that.
Good point. So he comes storming out of there and starts just whipping people. And I want to tell you, I've seen so many ambushes go down like that I thought, you know what, they sold that pretty well. That looked pretty good, because I think that may be the only time Oliver Platt did any kind of stunt work, but you could tell it was him. And it looked just like a brawl, and I loved it. I thought it was hilarious.
I think they did a very good job with it. And I put in my notes, I really enjoyed that backstage brawl that they did. So that's cool. But here's the part that really drove me nuts is that they had King crown DDP backstage and then cover him for the 1, 2, 3. And my first thought is, when did the world title become the WWF Hardcore title, which can be defended anytime and anywhere?
Thank you very much. I was wondering the same thing. That didn't make any sense. But here, we got to talk about this too. What is it with these double action moves in the movies we review when it comes to wrestling? Hogan had one. Now he's got one.
You've got to remember that Hulk Hogan, back in the day when he would wrestle for Japan, his finishing move was a double axe handle, a running double axe.
This is true. This
so
is
that
true.
was a finishing move that he actually used, and they wanted to.
But Jerry Lawler didn't do this.
Well, again, yes, that's true. But remember, he's coming off the top rope with his little double axe handle, so it's a little bit different.
I just thought it was funny, but it's a dumb move. But it is kind of cool. But I'm with you. Why did he think that would work? But you know what? Without even trying, they have now created television gold. And I think the promoter sees that, and he jumps on it. because Gordy and Shawn get him in all manner of wrestling holds, which is hilarious. And he's like, "What are you doing to me?" They're not hurting him, but they think they're really putting the whip on him.
Right.
Then he jumps on it and comes up with the whole bit about how the next match is going to go down. Now, how did you like that?
I thought it was good. I thought it was kind of weird that he would be offering the match, but he's live on TV, so you have to think quickly, and it made sense. Okay, here's the way I can get rid of you for good. Number one, there'll be a cage match, you and DDP for the title. You're not the champ now because that wasn't a sanctioned match, whatever. You and DDP for the title. If you win, you get your title back, which in wrestling is, the only thing you want. And you'll get $1 million, which is the only thing King wants. Is the money. So he's got him sold right there. And of course, Gordy answers for him. And the King's really like, no, I don't want to do that because he knows he's going to get his ass kicked by DDP in the ring again. It's not going to be a regular match. And with a cage around, that's going to hurt a lot more.
Now, let's talk about this cage business here, okay? When you think cage matches, WCW would do a cage match every once in a blue moon, but they were not the cage match people. They would much rather, they do 2 rings side by side and they do other stuff. But cage matches they always seem to be like this most over-the-top gimmick. And this one is because it's a triple cage match. You got to go through levels of hell and all this stuff.
They didn't even announce it like that until the actual night of the show. So he just said a cage match when he leveled it off. Then at Showtime, he said, you're going to have 3 levels of the cage. So they didn't even lay the groundwork for that until the actual pay-per-view match itself, which I thought was interesting. But you got to think back in 1995, WCW did do a similar match to this, called the Tower of Terror match between.
I remember that one.
Yep. Ooh. It was Ric Flair and, someone else versus Hogan and Savage or something like that. And so they've had this 3-tiered before. This was a totally different concept than that was, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it always was to me as a WCW fan, the cage got brought out usually around like some violent, when you really wanted people to just throw down. Most of the time they just didn't do it.
Yeah, most of the time it was just only really brought out for war games. The only other time I could think of was I think Hogan and Flair had a cage match in '94.
Well, they did it, and this was before the Bischoff era, but they did it at Halloween Havoc once.
Yeah,
they had Flair and Sting taking on the Great Muta and Terry Funk when that was going down, and that was a really cool match.
Yeah, it was very rarely used, which made it special, and now you see it every week, it seems.
Yeah, well, and see, that's the bit, though, right, is that they started just freewheeling and throwing this stuff out, and again, they're giving it away for free. They're going to throw that out there for nothing on Nitro, know, which I guess this whole movie is supposed to be a commercial for Nitro, is that we will give you movie quality pay-per-view stuff every Monday night. Well, of course, you can't deliver it on that every time. Anyway,
then nobody wants to pay for your pay-per-view, so yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Why am I going to buy what I can see for free? So you got a good point. Which brings us to Sasha, and that's a great segue. Good old Sasha and the old Nitro party.
Yep, the after party for the wrestlers. They're sitting back there getting hammered. The Nitro Girls are dancing like it's a strip joint. And you got Mean Gene in the corner, drunk off his mind, asking the King if he was sexy. Wow.
Yeah, that was really awkward and weird. That's all I can say.
My favorite part, though, is when the King is walking away and falls into the damn sewer. That's hilarious.
Something. Well, there's that, and then Sasha walks up and starts flirting with Gordy, and she's like, "You got a beer?" And he just grabs like a half-drunk beer out of some guy's hands, and she's like, "Okay," and goes with it. I'm like, well, now you know Sasha's DTF.
Oh yeah, definitely,
big time. But anyway, the whole point of that is they're trying to figure out, we got to get somebody to help train the King, get him back in shape, and they get tipped off to Sal Bandini.
Yeah. Well, Sal Bandini is like a character who is modeled after like a Stu Hart. If you're anywhere familiar with wrestling and the Hart family, Stu Hart trained pretty much any great Canadian wrestler who's ever stepped in the ring. And Sal Bandini is kind of a take on Stu Hart, because Stu Hart could stretch and hurt the crap out of pretty much anyone he wanted to. Is a really tough man all the way up until, a couple years before he died when he was facing some serious health issues. But this was a feared man by people. They would go there, and even into his 80s, he would take and make wrestlers cry from stretching them so hard.
Yeah.
So he was a good guy. So this is what I took Sal Bandini to be. The old man who's training in wrestling, loves wrestling. It's his whole life. And I liked the whole character. I thought it was a cool character to bring in.
Martin Landau, never too big to slum it in one of these. He does these kind of roles every now and then where he'll just show up as the creepy old wise guy or whatever. I'll tell you, watching this, and I know it's a movie that came out after it, I was having rip-torn dodgeball flashbacks where the old guy comes in and just whips everybody's butt, but it somehow makes you better. Sal Bandini's going to teach the King how to be tough again, or whatever. So we're going with that. Whatever. It works. But Gordy shows up at Sasha's after all of this, to tell her thanks and all that. And again, we've already established that Sasha's ready to go, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
She's fairly willing.
Easy is the word you're looking for.
Yes,
sure.
very much.
But which is kind of ridiculous. But
this bedroom scene is so telling of what a pathetic loser Gordy is, because she says, "Let's wrestle," and he literally thinks they want to wrestle, and she rips off her top, and his response is what, Jay? Foreign objects.
Oh, dude, I don't remember.
Foreign objects, and then he punches her. He's honest to God, really.
We've seen how that ends, and it doesn't end well. Go back and listen to our Donkey Punch show.
Oh God,
that all I needed was to rip them though. In that,
yes,
one of those Hogan hand signals in that scene, and the circle would have been complete.
Yes,
at that point. So, that was a really awkward, weird. You know what? I think every scene Rose McGowan's in this movie is really awkward and weird.
Yes.
Maybe it's because she's kind of awkward and weird. I don't know.
I just don't think she cared.
You know what? You can ding Oliver Platt for not being in shape, to do this or whatever, and there's no way he would have ever been. He's just tall and Canadian, so he works in this. But Rose McGowan is totally miscast. They just could have got one of the real Nitro girls. Get Stacy Keibler or one of those. I mean, those girls could have pulled this off.
Yeah, I agree. They could have gone so much of a better route than this and used one of these other actual real wrestling girls. They didn't need to bring Rose in. She wasn't really going to bring any superstar value to the movie. I mean, let's be honest, she wasn't.
But the whole purpose of her character is what? She's going to turn on these guys.
Yeah, she's there to basically spy on them and tell Sinclair where they are so they can be attacked.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. They get attacked, and Sal winds up in the hospital.
Well, seriously, this is the total Brill moment of this movie. Sinclair sends Sid Vicious and Saturn to take out Sal. Really?
I just needed somebody on a motorcycle to come up and save them all.
Oh, jeez. Mid-rape.
Oh, we didn't need that. Well, you know what, though? We did get people crying at the hospital bed again. So we're calling back to Rocky 2. Such a shadow of what is such a good scene that it's just getting ripped off by friggin' Hogan. But I want to tell you, though, I don't think this is accident, Brian. I think these people are aware of No Holds Barred because they're aping so many of those moves.
I know.
It just keeps
so
coming
sad.
back.
It's so sad.
Maybe that's the circle of wrestling. I don't know.
It could be that every wrestling promoter thinks that that's how things in real life would be, right? I don't know. It's so bad. But here we go back to the hospital, and Gordy overhears while getting himself a snack, Sasha talking to Sinclair on the phone and telling her whole plan. So they're getting ready to leave and go back to basics and learn everything from scratch, I guess. And she comes out and says, "Oh, what's going on? Oh, we're heading back to Georgia. Oh, can I come with?" No, we're going. Oh no, he says, "Oh, we're going back to basics to find a heart. Can I come too?" No, because you don't have one. I thought it was a good line. Ooh. Not a bad line.
It's cold, but you know what? No, that's something Gordy would say just to get at her. Like, she don't have one. Ugh. He's trying to cut a promo on her, which is funny.
Which she just kind of goes, "Huh? Oh, okay," and doesn't even really Yeah. That's the.
Yeah.
I think that's the end of Sasha until the end of the movie, but which is good.
Yeah, she doesn't pop back up until the very end again, which is weird. But you know, that's again, she served her purpose. So I didn't need more Sasha to make this thing move.
No,
because the next bit they gotta get back to getting him into basics, and they're gonna get him a posse and all that. We'll get to that in a minute. But Gordy gets basically abducted by his family because he is gonna be a policeman no matter what.
Yeah, Daddy basically says, "Hey, you need to take this test." This dad is real psycho, right? He thinks all his kids need to be state troopers. He basically busts his kid all the time. Even makes him put his hands on there and searches him for stuff. Just your typical hardcore cop, basically. And they have the whole family around the table at the beginning of this movie, and he walks in and they all pull guns on him.
What the Richard hell? Lineback is this character, okay? And he's been in all kinds of stuff, folks. He was in Speed. He's in Varsity Blues. He's the dad that James Vanderbeek does the whole "I don't want your life" and throws the football and breaks his nose. He's always playing some jerk. That's kind of his whole career. He just plays some a-hole. But he's been on stuff. But he's so over the top here and so goofy. Like Gordy sends him a postcard from New York talking about, "I'm sure there's another police exam you make me take some of the time, but we believe in the king," and he hangs up on the refrigerator and he blows the refrigerator away. I mean, he's so ridiculous, but it's funny, and I like that he's playing it so goofy because he's almost like a wrestler, which I think is telling because that's exactly where this is going to go. That eventually he could be brought around to this because he's just as fanatical about being a policeman as Gordy is about being a wrestler, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same exact thing, just a different focus.
But they take Gordy out, and so now the dynamic has changed. They take Gordy out, and I got to tell you, Scott Conn and Oliver Platt together are not nearly as interesting when you don't have Arquette there. And I didn't think I'd be saying that, but I feel that way.
You're taking the one guy who really wanted to go on this quest out of it and putting the guy who didn't really want to go on it as the leader of this quest now? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I don't know if that's supposed to bring Sean around. I don't know what's happening, but again, why are they bringing in all these like rubes to be the posse for this wrestler?
You got to remember that they went to Goldberg at one point in this movie and asked him if he could help King in this, and Goldberg basically said, I can't do that. I got my job. I got to take it out. I just can't do it. And so they know they can't go to other wrestlers. So they're trying these weirdos out, and it makes no sense. I don't know why they need a posse. Basically, are these kids going to stand a chance against real wrestlers if they have to guard the King? Hell no.
Yeah. Well, you know what? How about the remake of We're Not Gonna Take It?
No.
Kind of like these guys. A little bit of a cheap imitation,
Exactly.
It's not Twisted Sister. Biff Naked is an interesting person and maybe an interesting performer. She certainly had some ups and downs in her own life, but I just felt like, much like this scene in a lot of this movie, this is a cheap imitation of what's going on. But I want to tell you, Fireman Fred and the Chewer. I have seen those guys wrestle on Nitro. I swear I have. So that ridiculous.
Yeah, actually, you've seen the Chewer was Skinner in WWF. He was always chewing tobacco and spitting. It was gross. Yeah, no, it's terrible. But they got this whole posse, which I don't really get. Then we get finally to the pay-per-view night.
Ah, it's finally here. Well, hold on. Before they get ready to leave, they're pulling out in the RV, and who showed up but the dream girl for Sean, right? Who saw him on TV, and she's all about him now, right?
Exactly. TV makes you attractive.
But who does he go give a gift to and hit on?
Wendy.
The not, well, she's not bad looking, but the different, the cute girl who's into your stuff.
Exactly.
And they wind up, getting it on, and then, we see Scott Conn, butt naked running down the street, which I didn't ever need to see.
No, I agree.
But, I got it. So there we are. And now it's we're back to the night, and death threats to Sting?
Yeah,
Really?
basically Sinclair comes up to Sting and tells him, you need to make sure that King doesn't get that belt. Because he's going to be sitting up at the top of the cage, right? So he needs to make sure that you're never going to... King doesn't get the belt, and if he doesn't, he's going to kill him. Wow.
Yeah, really. I'm like, conference room tomorrow. I'm having that whole flashback there with Brell. and I want to say this too. That I hated that when they did that with Sting, they stuck him in the rafters and he just stared at people. The Crow movie ruined Sting for me forever. And I've never even seen The Crow, but it just ruined
You know, I loved Sting from the rafters. I loved the whole story they did with that, the whole waiting for almost a year for that to really come to fruition. It was suspenseful. It was great. It was awesome. He never spoke. He never did anything. I loved that whole thing. That was awesome. But this was many, many years later, and they're trying to really kind of recapture it, and it was just bad. But again,
it was played out.
That was played out after Sting beat Hogan. After Sting had beaten Hogan for the title, Sting should have gone back to a different look.
He should go back to the spiked hair and the paint and the whole bit. Yeah,
he kept it all the way up until last year. Or actually, this year.
Oh, wow. Well, God, he's still wrestling.
He is, and he finally changed his look. And guess what he is now? The Joker.
Even worse. Anyway,
style. Anyway,
moving on. But now I'll tell you, nothing compares to Sean's orange pimp suit.
Oh, that's terrible. Terrible.
That's the worst looking thing ever. How did they come up with that?
And why is a pimp leading the king to the ring?
I don't know. Why is any of this happening? Shouldn't he be dressed up like the court jester or something with a little?
Would have made a little more sense.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he should have been like a knight. I don't know.
Yeah,
that would have been ridiculous
the
too.
Pimp.
The pimp. He's in this, and then we got the cocked hat and the whole bit. He looks like one of those characters you can make yourself if you're playing like the Godfather game. You know, you can actually make that outfit and be
him. Terrible.
But it's terrible. Of course, it's time to Ready to Rumble. We bring out Michael Buffer, your favorite person, and he does the whole bit. The cage match of triple death.
Yes.
Or what the hell ever.
The cage of death.
Which is
3 levels, ladies and gentlemen. You have to get through each level, and on each level there will be another series of challenges for you. And then at the top is the title, and you have to make it to the top, take down the title to win the match.
So it's kind of like ladder match combined with cage matches. We got everything. We're mixing our chocolate and peanut butter here regularly now. It's
Oh yeah.
What's up with DDP not having his real music?
That's what I was wondering. I mean, this is the WCW movie, so why didn't they give him the rights to use his normal entrance music? It would only make sense.
Unless they wanted to have something else on the soundtrack, which is horrible.
But if they're gonna call him DDP, then use his damn music. People know him by the music. I don't know. I thought it was odd.
I can only imagine maybe they paid all that jack to Michael Buffer to be able to use Ready to Rumble, so they couldn't. I don't know.
Nah, they had him on payroll, so they didn't need to pay him anymore.
Good point. I don't know. It was really weird. So, but the match gets going, and Sinclair quickly calls out the Goon Squad.
Yep.
You know, to come out and
they were under the ring.
I mean,
by the way, the whole time.
Yeah, what were they doing? Was there a trap door? I mean, what?
No, they this happens in wrestling. People sit under the ring for the whole show and then come out in the main event. It's silly.
I've been under a wrestling ring. That is not a place you want to be. Okay.
Trust me, if you've heard some of the stories about what people do under the wrestling ring, you don't want to be there.
Yeah, even beyond that. But I mean, just to be there, you don't want to be there. It's a terrible place. But whatever. I mean, it looks like all hope is getting lost, right? Everybody is bringing the beat down. But
including
King's starting to hold his own. Go ahead.
Well, including King's own son, Frankie, who makes an appearance and turns on his daddy.
Oh. Did we see that before?
David Flair, baby. David Flair turning on Rick.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you?
Yeah, not so good.
That's all I'm saying.
He did get to date Stacy Keibler for quite a while, so I guess it worked out well at the time.
I'm going to say his career's still moving. She's dating Clooney now. What is he doing? Isn't he refereeing in, RNA or something like that, Ring of Honor? I don't know what
cares
David
what
Flair's
Clooney's
doing. Yeah, well, David Flair's not, he's not living off Dad's money. We know that.
Dad doesn't have any money, but yes.
Yeah. So sadly, but yeah, you're right. But yeah, so they had that whole heel turn there, and my whole idea was, did Vince Russo write this too?
I would imagine he did.
Yeah, this is terrible. But then when all hope seems lost, here comes Officer Gordy with his friggin' motorcycle jump of doom.
Yeah, total rip-off of the Mountie.
I don't even remember the Mountie. That sounds horrible.
Jacques Rougeau as the Mountie?
Oh my gosh, now I know him, but I didn't know he
Classic.
played the Mountie.
He played the Mountie. Absolutely.
Oh God, what a depressing idea.
He had good success with it.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, but it's about 20 years late here.
True.
Now. This is their whole bit. So here's the thing. I'm watching this match go down when Gordy crashes the motorcycle in the ring and doesn't hit anybody. There's 20 people in this friggin' ring and he doesn't hit anybody.
Of course.
And I see Goldberg get the jackhammer, and I'm like, that must have been contractually obligated. So we had to show him do that again, because we've only seen it 575 other times. So one more, what's it going to hurt?
Well, you gotta, yeah, that was just terrible. But you gotta love Sasha coming in there and getting clobbered with the ladder. Oh, that's
the
good.
most phoned in part of her performance. That is the worst line readings ever. I swear they brought her back for this. She thought she was done with this movie. They brought her back, and she was like, whatever. And she read it and walked off the set. There's no proof to that. I just firmly believe it, because I've seen Rose McGowan act. She actually can. She is not doing it here. And she gets creamed by the ladder, which is dumb.
Well, that's a way to get rid of her for good, I guess.
Yeah, it knocks her cold. She's done, and that's the end of that, right? And it looks again like hope is lost, and who comes to the rescue? Out of the raft.
Oh, yes, this Stinger. He turns on Sinclair.
With his bat.
Apparently he doesn't think Sinclair can kill him.
I mean, there's no proof that he can actually ruin somebody's career. Oh, wait, about 70 minutes ago. Oh, damn, I forgot that. I was actually in that match. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe I wasn't there that night. But, I mean, really, that's, I think he just, didn't like being in this movie.
Yes. And then the whole, the match obviously goes to end. King gets to the top of the cage as Sting helps him by clobbering DDP, and then King puts him. What did he choke slam him? What did he do? Did he pick him up? Or?
No. It looked like DDP was going to slam him, but King got him up and slammed him through. Now, here's the thing. When Page is falling through that cage, his body begins to turn over, but he lands flat of his back.
Well, and
they do the shot in like multiple stages, which lets me know that was a poorly performed stunt.
Oh, absolutely. There's no way they're going to let Page fall that far down. That would kill the guy. But here's the thing. If Page goes through the top of the cage, that's a pretty small top of the cage, if you remember correctly. How's the King still balanced up on the top there? Because that cage is gone. There's only one sheet on that cage. It's not like it's
hanging onto the belt. I don't know. You're right though, because he walks across it to get the belt.
Yeah.
I have no clue. Maybe he's hovering in air. I don't know. The air that's underneath this movie.
He's the king. Maybe he can just float.
He's using the same hoverboard teleporter that Gordy and Sean used to move all over the country.
That's gotta be it. They
days.
took it from Back to the Future too.
It's got to be some. Well, God.
Hey, here's an extra prop.
Took.
Let's use this.
They must have taken some of the really bad writing too, because it's all over this thing. Let me tell you. But after that, you get the codas here.
Yeah.
Sean and Gordy go after Sinclair. Yeah,
smart.
Because Sinclair's whole bit is that I made wrestling, right? And Gordy throws out there, no, you didn't make wrestling. We, as in the fans, made wrestling.
Right.
And so now that's the age-old struggle is, right, is that who's really responsible for the success of the stars in wrestling, the promoters or the fans?
It's a good question, and a lot of times it's the fans will dictate where the promoters push. Because if you look at things and if you're a promoter and you're trying to push something that just doesn't work, take Chris Masters for an example. They tried to push him forever and nobody gave a crap. Six-Pac. It's called X-Pac Heat for a reason, folks. But anyway, it's a good question. The promoters definitely have a big say in it, but if the fans don't buy it, it's not going to work no matter what. So it's really a good balance between the two. But again, they go and beat up Sinclair because that's a smart idea because he still runs the company here, ladies and gentlemen. Is it really wise to beat him up?
They throw him to the fans who begin to beat him up. And I'm going, where is the tank security?
Well, at least he didn't get electrocuted by his own TV gear.
Videotape. Correct. He didn't. At least Dallas Page just landed on the ring. He didn't land through the ring.
Oh, he should have from that fall. That would have made more sense.
At that point, yeah. But we're doing the final bit, and Goldberg's all about, he's got to have his third moment of face time.
Oh, but hold on.
Yeah.
First off, they won this match, and they announced that Gordy is going to be the tag team partner for the King, and Sean's going to be the. And then they flash to everybody cheering. Wendy's cheering. That's my boyfriend. Blah, 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 whatever. But then all of a sudden, Daddy Cop is okay with this because he's cheering like a madman for that.
He's been won over because the rest of his family is going. He's using the cop angle as the gimmick, and that's what brings him over. Because again, the fanaticism. I bought that. I actually thought that was kind of. I mean, it's definitely Disney moment of the week, writing, but it worked for me. I was cool with it.
And of course,
what I'm not cool. Yes. What I'm not cool with is that they come up with the Law, also known as the Law, and Gordy
and his catchphrase.
I will bust you.
Oh,
which is worse than I will rule you.
It's terrible. And of course, Daddy gets all excited when he says that. My kid.
All I needed was somebody to throw the rip on him right there in the freeze frame.
Yes.
And it was over. That was all I needed. That could have happened at multiple times, but he could have said it, thrown it, and we could have gone into a chorus of we're not going to take it. And that'd have been it. Because you know what? At that point, Brian, I wasn't going to take it anymore either. Well, we got to get one more moment with Goldberg. We go back to the friggin' convenience store for reasons unknown. Reasons known. We find out the tour bus is going through that town, and you got Sean telling the same three kids again, see, dreams come true, kids. And these guys are like, are you really going to be a part of the company? Then Goldberg throws the rude clerk through the glass door. Wearing his gear, his tights.
So apparently Goldberg likes to walk around in his underwear.
Look, I'm like, dude, this movie is so dumb that I am through caring about that anymore. This is so bad that it's so shoddy, and it ends with a shoddy remake of a Queen classic. The movie's littered with this, and all I can say is they ride off into the sunset with Martin Landau in a hot tub going, God bless America. And I'm going, that is the weirdest truncated ending to a movie I've ever seen. It's even weirder than somebody getting electrocuted and everybody being okay with it. It's even weirder than some of the stuff they pulled on Nitro through the years. Yeah, I really that movie should have ended in the ring with everybody triumphant. I didn't need the coda at the end. That made no sense at all.
No, and here's the other kicker. They show the limo, I guess, or tour bus or whatever the hell it was, come up with the Nitro Girls in, and that's when Sean says, "Yep, dreams can come true," and flashes the sign like he's going to get laid by the Nitro Girls. But isn't he now with Wendy?
I know, awkward.
It's a little weird.
Again,
but
man,
still, Goldberg in tights at the shopping convenience store, that just made me, I think I rolled over in my chair laughing at that.
Dude, I feel like that was tagged onto this movie for reasons that don't make any sense. Like, I think they wanted to end it in the ring, and they realized, no, we need one more thing. And so they got that, and they shot that in a day, and that
terrible.
was it. It was a terrible ending. It really was. But, Brian, we're at the end of the podcast and the part where we give our final recommendations and popcorn ratings. So what are yours for Ready to Rumble?
It's got some really poor writing in it, and it's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's nostalgic for me as a WCW fan to watch it, and I kind of enjoy that. Plus, I remember what happened the whole time around this, so it kind of brings back a lot of memories. So for me, I'm going to give it a small popcorn, but it's close to a medium popcorn for me. It's not a great movie.
You know what? It's not great at all. It's teetering on the line between small and medium in terms of story and things. But I got to say, I, like you, had a lot of fond memories associated with this thing. Not only the era of wrestling when I was watching it, but like I said at the beginning, watching it with my buddies, and the memories that brought back, and there's a lot of laughs in here. I mean, look, there are a lot of stupid movies you could just watch, people. This one's just good for fun. I mean, I think if this is on, I mean, this is way better than Leprechaun 2. So
it's hard to get worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty funny, and I like. There's enough in here, I think, to get you going. It's long. That's the funny thing. This movie's an hour and 50 minutes long, so you could like nap in half of it and not really miss anything. But there's enough to go there. I mean, really, you could, but. I think if you can get beyond some of the bad lines and the bad acting, and if you just want to have a little nostalgia and you're a fan of that era, you can do this. I'm going to give this some medium popcorn. This is some matinee, next day medium popcorn right here. But it's certainly better than the last wrestling flick we did by a mile, and it was a lot of fun. So I had fun with this one. I'll give it that stamp of approval. Folks, we thank you for joining us for this podcast. We had a lot of fun talking about this movie. You can find other entries in our podcast at continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. You search through our archives. We got Harry Potter there, all the Batman movies. We got Leprechaun movies like we've talked about. No Holds Barred. You got to go check that one out if you haven't heard that one yet, folks, and you're listening to this. Lots of other stuff there. Check it out. Let us know what you think by hooking up with our social media pages, Facebook and Twitter there. Leave us a message on our guest book. Check out our sister podcast, The Art of Slaying, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer retrospective, where Brian and I go through every episode of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, and you can catch up there. We got 3 seasons of it out, and we're in season 4 now. So, go enjoy all of it. It's there for you. We do these because we love them, and we like sharing them with you. So, until next time, for Brian, I'm Jay. Thanks for tuning in to Film Strip.
Oh, that was great!
Thanks for listening to Film Strip. Visit our website, continuousplaypodcast.com, for more reviews and episodes.
I can't believe how much we suck.
All content used or discussed in this podcast are the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17.